Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Women of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Women of Inspiration podcast, where we speak with women who are leading by example, ignoring the naysayers, and inspiring others to dream big. These are women who are paving the path for others to follow. So today is a very special guest, Carmen Vetian, who is the owner and partner of Cav Pro Professional Corporation. She is a professional charter accountant, CPA, CGA, and she is the owner of her own business. And so, Carmen, it is a real treat to have you on the Woman of Inspiration podcast today. You know, you've got a great story. You're a resilient entrepreneur, and we're just coming through the pandemic right now. So we have lots of stuff to talk about. So welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So I always love to start off with every single woman's got a story. So my dear, you have got a really great story. And you know, it's a story that has some sadness to it as well, but I think that's how it shapes you to being such the strong, independent, you know, trailblazing woman that you are today. So, you know, you didn't grow up in Canada. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Bucharest, Romania, and I lived there for the first 8 years of my life. I moved here with my parents. I actually literally turned 8 4 days after we moved here, and moved with my parents and my younger sister, who was not quite 5. And, you know, the older that I get, the more I realize what a difficult transition that was for my parents. You know, when I was younger, you don't realize, right? Like your kids, and after having kids and being a mother as well, realizing the things I do for my kids and the sacrifices that I make just really made me realize how difficult it must have been. You know, they moved here with a couple of suitcases, absolutely no knowledge of the language. I think my dad always jokes that he knew 5 words and 4 of them were swears. My mother knew a little bit more, but, you know, again, they're professionals, engineers, dentists moving to this country. There's a lot of challenges for most people who are immigrants to be able to work in their professions. So that was, you know, again, in looking back, the older that I get, the more I realize what a challenge it was for them to kind of make that decision.
And so I can't even imagine, like at 8, you know, going to a new school, not speaking the language, how challenging that is for a young woman. And so that was probably not your biggest challenge, though. Once you got through school, you know, your mom had become very sick. So,
Mhm.
you know, maybe just share a little bit about that story if you can, because there's so many women right now that are, you know, faced with challenges right now, and, you know, have loved ones that they've lost.
Yep. So yeah, we moved here. About 6 months later, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, very aggressive. Uh, by the time within, you know, a month or 2 after that, she had had a mastectomy, and you know, at that time, like I knew I was 8, right? I knew that she wasn't well, but I didn't really fully understand the ramifications. So after she had that, she underwent chemo. She had radiation as well, and you know, seemed like things were on track. And then it took a turn within a year and a bit. Took a turn for the worse, and she ended up with cancer on the other side of um, her body as well. So originally it was only on the right, and then they had to do another mastectomy and remove the left breast as well. So going through that, like she, you know, she fought through that. She was going through a big transition in her life, you know, having moved here. She was doing her studies, I guess, in order to be able to challenge the medical exam to get her dentistry license here and to practice as well. And just, you know, she struggled for about 7 years before she eventually lost her battle, with liver cancer being kind of the nail in her proverbial coffin. So it was very challenging, obviously, growing up quickly, having to understand that there was, you know, a lot of things that we couldn't do. We never went on vacations. You know, it was just everything revolved kind of around her illness in a lot of ways, although she made sure that we were affected as little as possible, right? Always a smile on her face, you know, keeping us positive, which again, as a mother now, I realize truly what the turmoil she must have gone through, wondering day to day whether she would be here the same time next year.
Wow. And that's, I think back, like, I mean, 14, as you have a daughter around the same age right now.
14 now, yep.
14 now. And, so who were the female role models? Did you have women, in your network, as you were growing up, as you were going through this really traumatic part of your, becoming a woman yourself? Did you have that female support around you?
I did have some support. I mean, obviously, as a 14-year-old going through junior high and, bit of an ugly duckling, so to speak, as well. And, dealing with like all the issues that you deal with, popular kids and various cliques and groups of people like that. It was challenging. I mean, my biggest role model and support was actually my mother. Like, so all the while she was going through that, she was able to, keep supporting me and keep helping me to stay strong and to kind of get through those really challenging years of where you're just trying to find yourself. I did also have my grandmother, who was my mother's mom. So she was a very, very big part of my sisters and my life. She raised us as well. Grandma was always there, every day. We we lived in an apartment building in Bucharest, and she lived below us, and she moved there so that we could make as much noise as we wanted to without having the neighbors complain. So having her as a role model as well, and just seeing her supporting her daughter was something that was really, really helpful. And then she outlived her daughter actually by about 32 years.
Wow.
So I was lucky, because a lot of people lose their grandparents early. And so for having lost my mother at a younger age, I was thankful and lucky that I had my grandmother well into my 40s.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm so happy that your anchor was near you for the best part of the journey of your whole entire life. And I know that, I always love asking this question, when you were 12 or 14, did you know that you would be actually a woman that's leading a firm, that you would be a CPA? Did you know when you were young? Did you have you said that you grew up very fast, but did you have a clear idea for what that path would be for you as a little girl? Did you have some insight of, this is what I want, and just go for it? What was that for you?
So I didn't really know. I would say that at that time I didn't have that insight. Actually, I wanted to be Celine Dion. So that, but obviously that didn't materialize. So I had to go to plan B. I think I realized what I wanted. Like, I knew I wanted to be strong like my mother. So I had a really strong role model. I had a very, stern and very Eastern European father. So again, there was a lot of challenges put forth, and, for some people, different motivation styles, but in the end, even growing up with that and sort of having that, I'll say a little bit of old school, girls can do certain things and guys can do certain things, I think drove me into the direction of just wanting that ultimate independence. Being able to support my kids, my family, being able to be successful and to be, participating and working and having a career in a primarily male dominated industry too. So, there's a lot of that came from seeing the struggles my mother underwent and her perseverance and strength. And at the same time, being challenged by, limitations or perceived restrictions based on my gender.
So let me ask you something. What were some of those challenges that you faced?
Well, I'd say the biggest, of course, was just, I think that a lot of women in business, period, still, there's still a lot of industries, a lot of professional type careers that are very much male dominated. So I think the biggest thing I found was trying to be, in a male dominated industry, trying to make my mark while still being able to have what a lot of women want. And in your early 20s, you're dreaming of that wedding and of having a family and having kids, and just trying to figure out what that balance is going to look like, and being able to kind of achieve the career goal that I had, as well as achieving the life dream for a family.
And so you did get married,
I did.
and so you have beautiful kids out of your marriage. And I know that we've talked about some roadblocks that we've faced. I mean, was that a defining moment? What was the defining moment that you said, I'm going to start my firm, that I'm going to do this on my own? Did you were you married and had that vision, or did that kind of come about after you left your marriage?
That was actually before. So that vision came to me when I finished high school. I kind of went on to the next. I went straight into post-secondary education, and I decided to try accounting courses, and I just found that I really enjoyed it. And so then I thought, you know what, I'm going to pursue that. And from the minute that I started pursuing the accounting designations, I immediately went into the path that would put me in a position where I could have my own firm and be my own boss, essentially. And so pretty much from that time, like around 18, 19, I kind of had that vision. I was introduced to a couple of practitioners that were, one was male, one was female, but same thing, they worked in public practice at a firm. And I was sort of introduced into that role because my dad for a while had his own company as well. And so when he had that, he had to do the accounting and the tax side of things. And so being that I was a student in the field, he introduced me to his accountant at the time. And that just kind of solidified that was the path that I wanted to take. So that path was always there, even before I met my first husband, and before I got married. And, and then it was kind of during a time where I was, trying something different in my career, because I did work in large corporations as well, not just private practice. And I just found that I was burning the midnight oil, and I just wasn't feeling rewarded in any way. So at that point, I just said, you know what, I've always said that I'm going to do this. So at that time, I want to say I was about 32 when that happened. So essentially, I just I sat up one day and just sort of said, you know what, I'm not fulfilling my dream. This is not where I wanted to be. And, yes, financial compensation is part of that, right? Like, money is good when you're in certain roles in large corporations, but at the same time, I was missing time with my kids. My daughter was 1 at the time. And I just didn't feel that I was, kind of meeting my calling. And so I decided at that point that it was now or never. And then I just kind of made that transition and didn't look back.
So not an easy thing to do. I mean, I talked to so many entrepreneurs, who had had businesses, let's say 48 years, 50 years ago. And even 14 years ago, there wasn't the support for female entrepreneurs or access to mentors and advisors as there is now. So what were some of those challenges when you started your business 14 years ago?
I think part of the biggest challenges that I found for myself, because in my roles in private practice, when I was doing my articling and everything, I did have some really good role models and really good mentors and partners that I kind of worked under. I had a partnership opportunity at a firm prior to deciding to go out on my own, but that was when I was living in Edmonton, and I had since moved back to Calgary. So I think that for me, having those mentors really helped me to sort of have that vision of, this is what I need to do. And I kind of mapped it out, and I gave myself a 5-year plan, right? And I had my short term, my midterm, and my long-term goals. And, the biggest challenge, of course, is getting out there and making the connection. So I was very lucky that, unlike today's times with COVID in 2020 and 2021, there was a lot of networking events that I could go to. And I did have contacts, even in, from the large corporate experience that I had as well, that I was able to call on. So I was very fortunate in that regard, that I had very minimal blocks, other than being able to kind of make that transition financially, because I started from scratch. I didn't buy a block. I didn't take over an existing practice. I literally just decided one day that I was going to start doing this, and I started advertising and just going to every and any networking event that would be relevant to what I was looking for.
And you just got it done.
I did. Yes. I got it done. And I'm not going to say there wasn't some luck involved because of the connections that I'd had in previous experiences and previous positions. It did bring opportunities. So from that regard, it, it definitely could have been a lot more challenging, but I'd say I had a fairly simple start other than the decision of, did I do the right thing? Right.
So do you second guess yourself still today, or is this
no?
No.
I mean, I think that part of what it was is that I was actually exercising. I was vacationing with my family in Vancouver, and I happened to go down to the hotel gym, and I was running on a treadmill, and they had this poster there, and it just said success. And it said, the surest way to succeed is to determine not to fail. And from the moment I saw that, I took a picture of it, and that was right where I had started transitioning to my own, to be my own boss and to open up the firm. And I kind of just kept referring back to that, right? And just basically said, you know what, the worst case scenario is I go out and I get another job in industry as an accountant for another company. And if I don't try it, I'll never know, right?
And I think that's such great advice, Carmen, that you're able to offer some other women that are listening, as far as, what is that turning point? Like, how do you know? And, just really focus on, have your clear vision, and then just go for it, knowing that there is a plan B, but you will never, ever know what you can actually achieve if you don't try. So I love your fierce determination. Perhaps you can just shed a little bit of you're so organized in your planning and your vision, and you're so clear on everything. But what are some of the things that you do when you get stuck? Like, do you ever get stuck, and how do you overcome it? Because I think everybody gets stuck every once in a while. And I think our listeners are curious on, how does she overcome the barriers? How does she overcome like the moments of pivots and being stuck?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Monica. I think that everybody has those challenges, no matter where you're at, right? Whether you're a student, whether you're a business owner, whether you're somebody that is working in another company, you always question whether you're doing what you should be doing in that moment, and whether there's something else out there for you. And so for me, when, I have those days where there's, I had read a really good book actually at the beginning of the year that talked about, how a lot of individuals, not just entrepreneurs, but you end up having decision fatigue. And it's that idea that you make so many decisions in the day, right from even just when you wake up, like, what are you going to wear? What are you going to have for breakfast? What are you going to take for lunch? So having that having read that, it really shed some light into why sometimes I can have that, where I have those moments where I'm frustrated and I feel like I'm blocked and like I'm running on a treadmill, but I'm really not running anywhere. It's more like a hamster wheel than actually forward motion. So what I find for me is I let myself have those moments, and I let myself wallow, and I let myself cry if I want to. And then I just kind of say, okay, you know what? I've done that. I've gotten that emotion out, because I tend to be I'm a bit of a firecracker in that regard, is that I have these little explosions and these little, moments. And then I kind of just, once I get that out, that initial frustration and that emotion, then I come back down to the ground, and then I'm like, okay, so this is where I'm at right now. How am I going? How am I going to get around this? Am I going through it? Am I going, refocusing and changing direction and going around it? What is it going to take to get past there?
I love embrace the suck.
Yep.
There's no easy way around it. Just embrace it and move through that motion. I think that's so authentic, Carmen. I think that's what people need to hear. We always try and get over things, but why mask it? Just embrace it, and then feel through it, and then, allow yourself to just have that day or that 2 days where you just move through that piece and then move on. So that's such great advice. I love that.
Yeah. And I think that for women, and obviously I can't speak for all women, but I think that for women, there's, we feel things and we react very differently to how our male counterparts would react. I think that it's harder for us to like compartmentalize things potentially, or to just kind of chalk it up to like, we, as women, we set such high expectations for ourselves, because there are high expectations put on us to meet the, equivalent of other individuals and males in the industries, because we do juggle being the parents and we do juggle all the other things, and there's a lot of emotion that goes with that. So I feel that, you know, being able to feel it and to talk about it and to say that it's okay to have to feel like that, and to not just be able to kind of gloss over everything and just take tomorrow on as it comes. I mean, if that's what you need to sort of just get it out and get rid of it, there's no sense in chastising yourself for having those emotions, right? As long as you kind of, you have them, you get through your little, you know, your party, your little pity party or whatever, and then you just move beyond it.
So I think you touched on a little bit about work-life balance. And so I'd love to ask you, as a, you know, a busy mom, you know, running your own business, you know, do you think that there's anything called balance? What does that look like to you?
I think it, you know, honestly, I think work-life balance is just, I think it's smoke and mirrors. Because I think that's where some of that, you know, that blockage comes from. Because, you know, you can think you have work-life balance, but you're always going to have those moments where you're going to feel stuck and you're going to feel backed into a corner, or you're going to feel overwhelmed. And that's part of, I think that's part of us as entrepreneurs trying to achieve that balance, right? And just that idea that knowing that you're going to have those moments, and that, you know, as long as you are happy and your kids are happy, they're going to be well adjusted, and they're going to see what it takes and what you go through in order to achieve that, and just appreciate it.
Mm. And I think that that blends really nicely into my next question, is about your support hers, your support network. We know that we don't do it alone. So, you know,
Mhm.
who have been some of your support hers to really champion for you to achieve your success?
I think first and foremost, honestly, back to my grandmother, right? Like after losing my mom, she really, there was nothing that she wouldn't encourage me in. You know what I mean? Like obviously, if I said, "Hey, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to go skydiving," she might not be that encouraging with it. Or she might just say, "You know what, I'm coming with you," because she was just that type of person. But I think having her encouraging and sort of dispelling some of the negative that I was getting from, you know, other sources, whether it was, you know, friends who might not be in that position where they would take that step, because you do have to have a little bit of that gumption to be able to take it and say, you know what, if it doesn't work out, not everybody's cut out for doing that kind of stuff, right? So having her support to counteract some of the negativity that I was getting in other sources, I think was really instrumental. And just having her believe in me as she always did, right? There was nothing that she wouldn't support me in. And if I
Mm.
had a roadblock, she would, you know, she'd figure out a way to help me kind of get through it.
So, you know, I was going to ask you also, that this is the Women of Inspiration podcast, you know, to share about a woman that inspires you. I think you've laid out your grandmother as quite a big inspiration and role model in your world. But what are some of the things that inspire you about female leaders?
I think the things that inspire me about female leaders, and that I really kind of look up to, is this tenacity. I would say if I could pick one word to describe female leaders, is kind of, it's that tenacity, because they just don't give up, right? So it's that ability of being able to have those moments where you're blocked, you're down, but you know, they all get back up, right? They all get back up and they come out stronger. And that's part of where my, you know, my song that I had picked for the Women of Inspiration Awards by Carrie Underwood, "The Champion," that really resonates with me, because it's kind of that idea that, you know, you go back into your corner and you just come out fighting that much harder.
I love that. And I know that in the green room, we had a little dance party.
Yeah.
You know, I love that energy and tenacity, ambition, goals. Those are really not bad words. Those are
Mhm.
things that we should really embrace. What three words, if I was to ask you, that would somebody would say, you know, described Carmen, what would those words be?
Oh boy. I think one of them definitely is tenacious. I have had stubborn be another one from my children, of course. because I do tend to try to kind of do everything for myself. And some of it is that I want to know that I'm able to, and I want to know that that independence continues even as I get older. And I think the other one would probably be inspirational.
Well, I can say that you are inspirational. You are a woman of inspiration. For the listeners, you are a woman of inspiration for 2019, a rural leader. You're really paving the path in the city of Airdrie. And, so I guess that's a great lead into my next question is, how does it feel to be recognized as a woman of inspiration? We, of course, have nominations come out every single year. I want to ask you how it was stepping into that role where, number one, you were stepping into the spotlight, being recognized for being a woman of inspiration. How'd that feel?
I was overwhelmed. I think that when I first found out that I was nominated, it was my staff members, a couple of my staff members that had nominated me. And honestly, that it brought me to tears, because it really resonated with me that I was that, I guess, inspiring to them, for them to want to recognize me. And the idea that, they felt that strongly about it, to kind of, because I mean, there's inspirational people that are all over the world that are never recognized, unfortunately. And so the idea that they went out of their way to make sure that not only did they nominate me, but they vocalized to me how much, and how much I inspire them, and how much my support even means to them. So that right there kind of, it really, it hit home, and it made me feel very humble, because it made me realize that the things I'm trying to accomplish, not only as an entrepreneur and as a woman of inspiration, but even within my practice, is I want to raise my employees up and raise those women up that are now, potentially a couple of them have started in administrative roles and have grown into so much more than that. One of them is, originally wanted to be just an administrator, and now she's pursuing her CPA and will be done in about a year and a half. So, being able to do that and to kind of inspire her and support her that way, it just makes it worth it.
Well, congratulations on that. That's a huge feat. And you're growing your team internally, providing opportunities for them internally.
Mm-hmm.
This is amazing. And, I really, truly, I am a huge advocate for championing for women and raising the bar in celebration. But why do you feel, I mean, we have to talk about this more. We need to raise the profiles of women like yourself that are doing amazing things. But why is it so critical to recognize the achievements of women?
I think for me, I feel that it's critical because, like I had mentioned earlier, is so often entrepreneurs, and especially females, go unrecognized, right? You do so much for others around you, whether it's family, friends, coworkers. And I feel that getting that recognition and, having people support you and basically thank you for that it's really fantastic, because so often we go through those motions and there isn't anybody that is out there singing our praises, or kind of doing that. So it's just really nice to see that there is a mechanism for that, and there's a vehicle for women to be recognized, and to sort of be able to recognize in yourself even that you are making a difference. Because I tend to look at myself, and until I was nominated by my staff, I didn't really think I've done anything that was really that inspirational. I have a business, yes, and I've got a family, and I'm remarried to a very wonderful man, but I didn't think that I did anything outside of what is normal and average.
Hmm. And I find that so interesting, because that is really what a lot of women say is they don't realize the impact that they're making in the lives of
Mhm.
others. And that ripple effect is really far reaching. So I love the fact that, to encourage other women, like yourself, to step into the spotlight, because it paves the road for others to follow. I think the more that we can talk about this, Carmen, the better we can sort of help other women. It's not an ego thing. It's really about valuing your contribution and
Mhm.
paving the road for those to follow, and inspiring young women like you're raising right now to be really confident.
Yes, I definitely am raising a very strong minded female. That's for sure.
So I would love to chat with you about, what is one sort of thing that you do without a doubt every single day that you can contribute to your success? And maybe it's a couple things, Carmen, but if I was to say, what's your secret sauce, Carmen, what would that be?
I'm very much a list person. So I think that part of what I do for myself that I have to in order to be able to juggle is the lists. And so I always start like there's certain things I don't put on a list, but I just feel that kind of getting up early enough in the morning to sort of have a little bit of time for yourself to be able to set that tone for your day is very important. The one thing that I always do, and I had read it somewhere, and I don't recall where it was at this point, but I told another colleague, another female entrepreneur, and I said, you know what? Make your bed. Like as soon as you're out of it, make your bed. Because if you do nothing else, you're going to like leave that room feeling like you've already done something and you've already accomplished something, right? And when you step back into that room, you're not stepping into chaos, you're not stepping into a mess. For me, being in a messy environment is kind of it wears on me. So I feel like when I do that, I set the mood for my day and my room looks nice, and it just makes me feel good. So it's kind of that organization, and that flows through to my job. It flows through to managing deadlines as well. And that just kind of helps me to stay focused as well, because I'm very task oriented. So if I tick things off, then I feel a sense of accomplishment.
I make my bed every day too. And I am shaking my head going, I completely agree. And on the days that I'm like, let's see if I can go roll out and not do this, it doesn't happen.
No,
I'm like,
right?
I'm thinking about it, and I have to go and I have to get that bed made, because it really sets the tone for the entire day. Number one, you're not going to crawl back into it once it's up and once it's made.
Definitely.
And number two, it is about clearing the space for organization. And I love how you said deadlines in there as well, because it really does, being organized and time management, and I think is really important to do. So and plus it teaches your kids to do the same, right?
Yeah. My son, not so much. My daughter does it all the time. It's the first thing she does when she gets out of bed. My son, he could care less, but I find it like it's almost, I don't know, I almost find it meditative, because while I'm doing it and while I'm fluffing the pillows and doing all this thing in my head, it's kind of like my day is forming, and sort of like, okay, this is what I want to get done, and so I'm making that list. And then once I get that done and I get ready, I have my notebook and I start putting that down pen to paper. So it's sort of like I set my priorities while I'm doing that exercise. And like I said, it's almost like a meditative thing for me, because in that moment, I'm doing nothing else other than, making that bed. And at the same time, my mind is just allowing, my plans to kind of come into it as I wake up.
Well, I love it. I'm there with you on the bed making thing. I think it sets the tone for the entire day, personally and professionally. So your leadership, you're a great leader. Now, what would you say, if I was to ask you, what kind of leader would you describe yourself as?
I would say that depending on the words that you're using for descriptors for leaders, I would say that for myself, I like to try and mentor. So it's, leading partially by example, motivating staff around me, challenging them to be as productive and as efficient as possible, challenging them to expand their knowledge base as well. And so essentially just sort of leading by teaching.
And COVID, we're just coming out of COVID, Carmen, as you know, we're, a year and a little bit still in the pandemic, but we see a light at the end of the tunnel, I hope very soon. It was a challenging time for everybody, but as a leader and a leader of an organization, it was extremely challenging for everyone. What were some of the challenges that you faced through the pandemic, and how did you overcome them?
I think some of the challenges, of course, in the nature of the business that we are in private practice, a lot of it was being able to keep our clients informed of, different things and supports and subsidies that are available to them. So not only are we managing it, or was, our team managing our own, expectations and our own fears and concerns about what was going to happen, but we were sort of helping our clients to manage and to be guided through those as well, because it wasn't just us that was being affected, right? So in trying to continue to provide the service to our client base, as well as keeping ourselves safe and keeping our doors open and dealing with the challenges of the protocols for, okay, how do we transition to a more paperless environment? And we were lucky because we already had some of that already in place, just in the interest of becoming a bit more efficient with kind of the electronic age and cutting down some of that requirement. We do have a lot of clients, we are in Airdrie, but we do have a lot of clients that are not local. So rather than having people having to drive in and bring information in, we've provided a medium for them to be able to upload things electronically. So we did have some of that in place, but even then it was just the challenges of kind of walking them through that process, right? Helping them to have that process within their own businesses, even to transition and be able to deal with that paperless environment and still having staff being able to be efficient and all of that. So we were able to keep our doors open. We managed to put protocols in place that safeguarded the staff as well as the clients. So that was really helpful. But it's been a very challenging year because you just don't know what's coming month to month.
And so do you see yourself as being able to flex those resilience muscles easier now because you've got this under your belt and it prepares you? If we can get through a pandemic, we can get through anything. Would you agree that now coming through this, it just almost brings so much more confidence about, being able to come up against any roadblock?
I think so. I think that idea of resiliency in a business is definitely, being tried and tested for a lot of people, and, coming out on the other side of it and still being here. We still have our full team together. Everybody's maintained being able to work. We were able to change gears and kind of keep up with the different challenges that we had in making sure that we could still meet our clients' needs and deadlines. But definitely, I think that that's something that, when you look back, even our clients, and seeing how some of them have adapted, right? Like you look at local restaurants and you look at various other, gyms and trainers, right? They've all been hit very, very hard. So having that and seeing how they've adapted to be able to still provide some services and to, because from that perspective, not being able to dine out, not being able to go to the gym, it's things that people are having a very hard time with, right? Socialization. I mean, I couldn't imagine if this pandemic was 25 years ago, right? 25 years ago, I mean, I didn't talk to family overseas through FaceTime or through Zoom calls. I wasn't able to have client meetings in the same way that we're able to facilitate even this podcast. So that's really interesting that it's sort of like the timing of when it happened, we were able to kind of move forward through it because at least we didn't have the communication block.
Yeah, I actually love the opportunities that it's provided. I'm always glass half full, not half empty. And, I even look at the way that you've navigated through COVID with your business, Carmen. The challenges that women face. Is that not an extra way that you can communicate and really attract, new clients that are women-owned, women-led businesses, because you also understand as an entrepreneur, what it takes to run a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think that's a really interesting thing. And now you've just grown your business because everything's online, so all the prep that it takes actually to go online, now there's so much more opportunity. Now, I guess what I want to chat with you about is what are some of those, and I know this because we work together and you're an amazing source, and you're super organized, and you have a great service. But what do you think has been your niche, something that separates you from the others? Number one, outside of being a woman-owned business, right? Because I think we need to preach that all day long. You're women owned, tell everybody so they can
Yeah.
support you. But what else do you think that you've really developed your business that could really be considered as a niche?
So I think for us as a firm in general, I've always been like, even from when I started my business, I've always been very much about the people contact, right? I encourage clients to call, and I always tell clients, like, we want to hear from you like all year long. We don't want to hear from you just once a year when you need the taxes done or the financial statements done or anything like that, because I want to see their businesses succeed. And so I make myself available. And our priority is service, because in terms of what we actually do as accountants, I think that accountants are a dime a dozen. There are accountants out there that, you can get an accountant in a heartbeat. It's not like trying to find a doctor these days. So in that regard, what sets us apart is the service that we give, right? Being available to answer the questions for our clients and to help them out. And I always kind of approach my clients' financial needs and with the idea of that, if this was me, what would I want? How would I want to be handled? How would I want my business needs to be met? And so I think for us, the biggest thing is service and the people contact, right? So being able to have Zoom conference calls, Teams, whatever the medium is, has really been helpful, because it's so much nicer to be able to see somebody face to face than it is to just have just strictly a phone conversation. So for us, that's been really helpful, because it's given us the opportunity to still give some of that personal touch.
And I think it's all about relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to do business with people that you like, and especially trust. Confidentiality is a very, very big piece in your business. So, people that you like, trust, and you want to support. So I think you've got a really great business model, Carmen, and I love your personal ways that you reach out to people. I think that's really important now more than ever, is to be understood and understand the needs of your clients. So we're just coming up upon our ending of our Woman of Inspiration podcast. I'm going to say it was an entire treat. I was looking forward to this. So if we can leave, just a final question for our listeners here, any words of wisdom that you would like to share, to female entrepreneurs out there, taking that leap, starting their business, keeping going, what would you recommend?
I guess the biggest thing I would recommend is be resilient, right? Be tenacious. I think one of the questions before the podcast that you had in some of the submission information that we had provided was what would be your word for this year? And the word that I picked was transcendence. And the reason that I picked it, going hand in hand with tenacity, with perseverance, with, all of that, is that it's moving on to a higher form, or, basically moving on to, I guess, evolving and moving into something better, right? So continuously looking for that idea to, move forward. There's going to be negative, there's going to be positive, but if you focus on the positive and just kind of find a way around those stumbling blocks, just believe in yourself and you'll get through it.
So where do you transcend to be in the next 5 years, Carmen?
Oh my goodness. Well, I hope to still have our wonderful team together and to sort of be able to grow it. Obviously, being able to provide our services to women entrepreneurs is very, very important to us as well. And so just kind of continuing on and still, getting that satisfaction from not only being, independent, but also giving back to our clients and to making sure that their businesses are successful.
Beautifully said. Great way of wrapping this up today for our listeners, Carmen. Congratulations again. I know that you're part of our 100 Women of Inspiration book contributors, and you're part of the 2021 Roadshow on the graphics truck across North America right now. And so we are really, really excited for you to be participating in the book, contributing your wisdom. We look forward to more conversations with you. And for those that are going, you know what, I would really love to learn more about Carmen. I'm looking for someone that understands me as a woman-owned business. I would love to work with, or, another woman and support her. How can they get a hold of you?
So they can look us up on our website, And that's www.cavprofcorp.ca. So www.cavprofcorp.ca. There's some information about us, about my background as well. And then there's also contact information, or they can reach out through LinkedIn as well. I am on LinkedIn. So that would be one way that they can get in touch. And I'd be happy to chat with them and see and learn about their businesses.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Carmen, for your time today. It's been a real treat having you on our Woman of Inspiration podcast. Thank you to all of those that are watching today and listening. We ask you to please share the podcast, share it with your friends, with your network, and really comment. If you like something you hear, let us know about it, and invite you to reach out to Carmen as well. So thanks, everyone. I look forward to the 100 Women of Inspiration book and the tour and the roadshow coming up really soon, and see you all very soon. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica. And I want to thank you for all that you do, inspiring women and making sure that you are the champion for women entrepreneurs everywhere.
Aw, thank you, Carmen. That, you know what, that really does mean a lot. Coming from you, it just means the world. So thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thank you.